I've been playing Star Rail since release, it's why I have such an early UID, but I also played Genshin Impact since launch, or at the very least since that first week, and I want to kind of give my solid opinions. I know previously I made a video talking about the communities between the two, but I think Honkai Star Rail does have a bit of a difficulty in terms of how it's going to progress going forward. With Jin Yuan releasing, a lot of individuals have pulled him, I myself included, and whilst I did get Seela, and while I did build Yanxing, and while I did and have built a bunch of other characters, one of the biggest issues a lot of people are going to come up with, especially once they reach into the higher Trailblaze levels, is there is such a constraint on the resources you have. If you're talking strictly about Ascension mats, you need an unholy amount of them. If you're talking about traces, you need an unholy amount of resources, especially post level 4. Light cones are also an issue, and then relics are an issue. And specifically focusing down on relics, for everybody who's going to compare them vaguely to Genshin Impact, the biggest positive that Genshin had was that despite you having a bunch of relics and artifacts that you needed to farm, you could always have an off. This meant that hypothetically, you maybe wouldn't have been able to get the crit rate or crit damage on the set you wanted. So you could slide on over to a different set and maybe grab crit rate. And maybe grab crit rate like this one. And what that meant was you had a bit more of a flexible stance with artifacts and relics. Yes, you wanted a nice full set bonus, and yes, here you get a 4 set and a 2 set bonus. But the problem is, it makes it very difficult. As you can see here, I'm still running a 4 star. But even ignoring that, I want to talk about things because I am level 52. And I do have a bunch of units I built up. I do have all these level 70s, and I do have the 60 Ascended, and I do have Jin Yuan, who I want to build up. But as you get into the higher levels, you do have that constraint on resources that you can't really prepare for. Yes, I understand that you may be able to look at somebody like Silverwolf or Kafka, and you may understand that you want them and pre-farm for them. But for any unit in the future, especially if you're early on, a lot of people don't know what to farm for or what to spend their Trailblaze power on. Looking in here, a lot of people do legitimately want to go and farm relics. Relics are, at least in my opinion, the least valuable thing you should be farming. I want to clarify this. I know they are a big damage increase for a lot of characters, and I know they look nice and they give lots of stats, especially crit rate. But for the vast majority of you, everything else on this list is more valuable. Experience, you need an unholy amount of that to ascend from 60 to 70 and 70 and beyond. Trace materials, let's be honest here, if you've been building up your main roster, you definitely know how valuable these things are. The benefit and the reason I brought up Genshin Impact is because for comparison's sake, we're back here in Genshin. I haven't actually put this on, I haven't recorded this in a long time, but hey, I think it's important to at least discuss. When he ascends, he gets attack percentage and his passive. The passive for characters, even super low ones, have 1 unlocked. And this means that you're not spending resources on these. 3 traces, 3 passives, basically unlocked at the beginning. And then once you ascend them, which is something you would naturally do, you have all 3 fully unlocked. Now I understand that, yes, these are weekly boss mats, so these come from your Echoes of War. These here come from Talent Domain. These can actively be dropped and farmed from slimes, which you can get anywhere on the map. So it doesn't necessarily matter. The easiest way to get slimes would be to find them, or I can buy them from the shop. But let's say I just want to collect a few. I have some right here, which are very accessible. And so it means that yes, I do have to farm, but I'm not spending any resin on these materials here. And yes, they're available in the farm. And yes, you can get some, but you have the teapot, which gives you transient. You have the ones you collect absently, and then you have your own Primogem stash. And so what this means is, yes, I can go to Paimon's Bargains. I can scroll all the way down here and I can buy these if I need to. But my main limiting factor, yes, to a degree, it can be resin. I understand that. You can go out and hunt down the resources you need altogether. And those resources aren't bound to just one specific class. If I want to level up Ganyu's mats, I need Diligence. If I want to level up Xiao's mats, I need Prosperity. And despite Xiao being Animo, I also need Prosperity for Yelan, who's Hydro and uses a bow. So they're not strictly limited. Yes, they are region locked, but we only have Mondstadt, Liyue, Inazuma, and then Sumeru. And so the resources you get and the resources you need are pretty reliably farmed. You don't need to know if you're pulling for X character, what books do you need? You can just sit down and say, if I want Nilou, I just gotta farm Sumeru books. If I want Sino, I just gotta farm Sumeru book. Objectively speaking, it makes the farming process easier. I understand that a lot of people don't like Genshin. If we're looking and comparing, it's very difficult for me to compare the two relatively easily when I can understand that the vast amount of resources I need here, both of these two resources can be picked up and farmed from regular enemies. And these are either given out from events or just outright farm. I'm only spending it on talents. And the experience for this weapon, which is the equivalent to a light cone, means that I only need to focus on this map because the experience I get is stuff I can just mine. And I understand that's the benefit this game has as an open world, that I can actively go out and farm these things, but this is the same developer. And if it's the same developer and they're going from one strategy to another and one concept to another, I need to compare the two at the very least in terms of what you can do and how resource locked you are. In the early games of Genshin, yes, you have character quests. You also have your commissions, which give you weapon experience, experience overall, and some more, but you also have story quests now. And then you have hangouts, and then you have the teapot, and then you have a bunch of different bosses. And yes, we have the handbook, which gives you resources for doing random stuff. And yes, we have in battle, which gives you resources for building up characters, which realistically, in my opinion, should have been in that game. If Star Rail has a bunch of elements, we should be getting resources for building them up. If Star Rail has different paths, we should at the very least be getting resources for building them up, because it makes sense. It would alleviate a lot of the tension we have. Hey, you're building up a lightning character like Jin Yuan. Maybe you get the lightning set. As you build up your roster, as you build up your units, the brick wall you hit isn't necessarily in terms of resources first, but it's in terms of the content you can assemble and content you can actually do. Yes, you can run around collecting chests. Yes, you can run around and kill mobs. And yes, you can do the simulated universe for some drops, and that may be fine for you. And if you hire, you can go to Forgotten Hall. That's what I did. The problem is you don't have anything that you can realistically do without your stamina. Once you complete the puzzles on the map, once you complete the Forgotten Hall, the base value at least, and your simulated universe of the week, you can do this run repeatedly, but it starts to feel a bit more like a chore, especially since you can't fully auto and you have to walk to enemies. Minor inconvenience, I know, but walking's annoying. I just feel like it should kind of be included. Star Rail, arguably more so than Genshin, maybe even Honkai Impact 3rd, suffers from that constriction of resources very quickly, especially when the content you have access to isn't that high. A lot of individuals reach the end of the story very early on, and it feels like it kind of in is low. Don't get me wrong, we have the event coming up. Don't get me wrong, you have the Genuine banner here, but if you're not summoning for this, the question is, what are you looking forward to? I have some individuals who are looking forward to Silverwolf. You know, they are just looking forward to her. Or maybe looking forward to Kafka. And if you are in that case, you don't have much to do. You can prep, but realistically, until they release, what do you know about a character that cannot or won't be changed aside from their element and made path? Now I got Genuine. I like him. He's fun. He's not going to replace my main here, but he's fun. And that fun is severely limited by what I can legitimately do with a character who isn't fully built up because I couldn't farm for the character because I didn't know what I was going to do with the character in the first place. And I didn't intend on getting him. Now that's my own fault. But the reason I bring this up is because there is a bit of a discrepancy in my opinion in how people view a lot of the features and a lot of the systems in Star Rail. Relics in Star Rail are not better than Genshin, just because that off-piece makes it a bit difficult to finish building up your characters. Yes, I do understand that this secondary two-piece may be really nice for your entire team, but if you still can't finish off the two-piece that you want because you have to farm two separate sets, it doesn't really reward you. As some will point out, self-modeling resin will allow you to pick a main stat for a piece. And for the body, that may be crit rate, it may be crit damage, but it's rare, first off. And second off, the substats may still be god awful. Now, I understand if it's crit rate or crit damage, it can save you and overall give you a pretty big boost, regardless of the circumstance. But if you are an individual who doesn't have access to it, has already used it for one character, and you continuously farm relics, there's a very high chance that you won't get that for a long time. And so I'm not going to consider this in the overall equation of if relics are better or worse than Genshin, because strictly speaking, this doesn't really change the grand scheme of things. But I know also many individuals will look at this and say, well, Star Rail is early. And yes, that's true. I intend to play maybe until the next huge patch, like maybe 2.0 or whatever. But as of right now, that excuse doesn't work when I'm comparing it to a game that's made by the same company that has existed for about 3 years now. And a lot of these mistakes or issues that are propping up were issues that that game itself had and did resolve. We don't have condensed resin, we have emulsifiers. Those emulsifiers are only working in the simulated universe. Relics cost more, but give less or the same amount. Character essential materials for the big bosses, I like that it's equal to your equilibrium level. That's perfectly fine. And yes, we have tier lists out, but I'll be honest, you can kind of ignore most of them because the end game is kind of gearing towards the final or current banner characters, and a lot of us haven't reached that. I don't think anyone really has reached, the point where we can 80 or 90 these units. So that end game isn't there for us to accurately rate how valuable a unit is long term. Nobody can say, hey, don't invest in Himiko or don't invest into Herder, because if we haven't reached that end game point, we don't know how valuable they may be later on. Especially since we can't unlock their final trace, the big bonus ability. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm saying both have mistakes and issues that do affect their core gameplay, but I dislike how Honkai Star Rail is being paraded as being better. And I understand it's hyped, I understand it's new. People may be disappointed, people may jump to that. I even jumped to that. I played Star Rail more than I played this, but I've been playing this for 3 years. Both games have their flaws, both games have their advantages. Neither one's perfect. I just do want Star Rail to alleviate the limitation that we have on resources so quickly, because you hit that wall very early on and there's not much you can do. And unlike Genshin, you can't explore because you can pretty easily find the obvious chest or do the daily limited puzzles, and the side quests are not numerous enough to warrant you saying, okay, I'm done here, I'm done with my resin, I'm done with my stamina, let me go out and do a bunch of side quests, because the materials you get aren't worthwhile to begin with. But hey, that's just my opinion. As a Genshin Impact player, as a Star Rail player, and apparently as a HoYoverse content creator. Maybe I'll try Honkai Impact 3rd and just see where it came from. But I want your thoughts as well. Either way, consider subscribing. I know this is a bit jumbled, but I'll see you next time. Good luck on your summons if you're pulling genuine, and if you're saving, good luck collecting.